Hi there, it's Alexia Hupin. Welcome to Wine by Alex, the show to watch to take your wine game to the next level. Today you're watching a brand new episode of Ask Wine by Alex. And I've got a question from Daniel. How do you make all that info you learn stick in? Now Daniel, this is a pretty great question. I know you have sat your WSET free exams pretty recently, so I might be a bit late for this, but it's going to be helpful in your future anyway. So if you have wine exams coming, make sure to keep watching to get all my tips on how to make the info I learn stick in. My first tip is to be mindful and focused when you study. It can seem obvious to be focused when studying, but most often your mind spreads and wanders among your thoughts instead of focusing only on what you are reading. So here's what I do. I plan my study time in advance. I really block it into my calendar so that it's non-negotiable. Then I get rid of all the other things I need to do for real or in my mind. I usually do a little meditation right before studying. This allows me to quiet my mind and be fully present to my study. If you're deeply focused and 100% on your study, you've got more chances to remember it. My second tip is to write down the info. It's been scientifically proven that writing down something increases your chances to remember it by 50%. So I always write down the things I learn to make them stick in. Now, how you write down the info, it's totally up to you according to what speaks to you the most. I know some people just need to write down the info on a paper and reread it. I've seen others drawing maps of wine regions and writing down the info they need to remember on the maps. One thing you can do is to design a visualization board for each region, mixing your notes with maps and pictures of the area, for example. I personally create mind maps for each subject on the software iMindMap that I bought while starting WSET 3. Mind mapping has been invented by Tony Buzan. You start with a central idea and you develop around it in as many branches as you need to use. I've never left it since then. Connections make themselves while I create the maps, and then I just have to read them over and over. My third tip is to vary your sources of information. While most of us are visual people, some may find it difficult to remember things just by reading them. And even visual people need to diversify their sources of information to use different senses and make the information stick in. I know I'm visual at 95%, but I always challenge my hearing and taste. So I regularly leave my study books to listen to a podcast and taste some wines. Even if I stick to my visual side, I'll switch my study books to wine books written with a different approach, or I watch a documentary. One I've been loving lately is Wine Masters TV. It's full of precious insights about France, Italy, and Spain's main regions. And I think it's pretty helpful to see things instead of reading them. It speaks to me in a different way. My fourth tip is to take regular breaks through your studies. Well, it's something I'm still working on. Actually, I'm more the kind of people to study relentlessly when I decide to. But then I kind of burn out and need a lot of time to recover and get back to my studies. So I've learned to take some breaks for the past year. This way I feel better in the long run. And I'm able to study when I want to instead of when I feel like it. By breaks, I mean short breaks during your study time, but also longer breaks in general. In your day study, take 10 to 20 minute breaks every 30-60 minutes of study. Go for a walk, stretch, cook, or create something. It will recharge your energy and you'll get back to work easily with a fresh brain. My 5 tips is to study one theme at a time and taste the wines that correspond right after. If I decide to study Bordeaux, I'll stick to it. I only learn Bordeaux and I go into an in-depth study with different sources of information. To close my study time, I'll do a tasting of several Bordeaux wines to make connections with what I've read before. I find that it's one of the best ways to cement the information I've learned just before. My 6th tip is to reread and revise regularly. Just as I wrote into my ebook on how to improve your wine tasting skills, you need to build your memory. It's like a muscle and you need to train it over and over so it keeps remembering stuff. So if you want to make the information stick in, you have to reread and revise the info regularly. There's no point to cramming into your books for the exams and to leave everything right after. You'll just forget everything. So once you've reached your goal of information, keep revising what you learned from time to time. It will help you refresh and consolidate the info into your brain. My 7th and final tip is to not learn all the info. Yeah, I know, this one can be a bit counterintuitive, I know, but to be honest, most of the info we learn disappears and we remember only the most important thing, or the ones that caught our attention. For my diploma, I'm not trying to know everything, simply because it's nearly impossible to know all the grapes and the blends and the yields of every wine region. Instead, I focus on getting the main information to be able to get the region, its philosophy and the wine styles. This allows me to have a general idea of the average grapes, blends or yields. So when you study wine, trust your brain and intuition. They will probably remember what you need to remember. When I study, I don't try to know it all, I don't force the information into my brain, I just read and repeat some stuff to myself. Then it's pretty amazing to see that when people ask me questions, I'm able to answer without even knowing it. And if I'm not able to answer the question, it's not a big deal. I can catch up in my books and next time I'll know. The world of wine is endless, that's the beauty in it, so just cut some slack. Well, that's all for today. I hope this resonated with you. Now I would love to hear from you. What's the tip that speaks to you and that you want to implement right now? What are your ways to remember what you learn? If you like this video, subscribe and share this with your friends. And if you want more awesome resources to take your wine game to the next level, come on over to winebyalex.com and make sure you get in the loop of my weekly email updates. You'll also receive my free ebook where I give you my top habits to improve your wine tasting skills. Thank you so much for watching this episode and I'll see you soon on Wine by Alex. Cheers!